Everybody knows the story of Sarah Braatman, the indigenous South African woman that was taken to England and exhibited in freak shows by her owner, William Dunlop. But only a few know how she eventually returned home. She was promised fame and fortune, but instead she was exploited. The hardship took a devastating toll on her, and in 1815, Sarah died in Paris at just 25 years old. 192 years later, in 1995, the South Africans, together with President Nelson Mandela, asked France to return Sarah's remains so she could finally be laid to rest in her homeland. France refused. Under French law, she was considered a museum property. The legal principle behind that decision was known as inalienable, which meant that anything in a public museum was considered the permanent property of the states. So Sarah was considered the permanent property of the French states. Then in 1998, South African poet Diana Ferrous was studying at the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands. There, she learned more about Sarah in a course called Sexuality in the Colonies, which examined the suffering Sarah endured. One day, while feeling homesick, Diana thought to herself, if I miss my mother this much, how much more did Sarah miss her mother? That single thought inspired her to write the poem, I Have Come to Take You Home. When Diana recited the poem at a conference, many people in the audience were moved to tears. Later, French Senator Nicolas came across the poem online and contacted Diana, asking for permission to use it in support of a bill calling for Sarah's remains to be returned to South Africa. The poem was translated into French, and Senator Nicolas read it before the French Senate. Its emotional impact was undeniable. It directly inspired the French Senate to unanimously vote to return Sarah's remains to South Africa on January 29, 2002. It was the first law in French history specifically enacted to allow human remains held by a national museum to be returned to their homeland. On April 29, 2002, a South African delegation left France carrying Sarah's remains. On May 3, she finally arrived back on African soil. She was laid to rest in Anki, her hometown, on August 9, 2002.